Parker Dalton hadn't planned on dancing with a stranger that night, definitely not one wearing heels that probably cost more than his rent. "Kai, buddy, just hold my hand tight, all right?" Parker said as he knelt down in the grand ballroom side hallway, zipping up his son's little jacket. The 6-year-old blinked up at him, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. "We'll watch the dancers for a bit, then we'll head back home. Deal." Kai nodded, his cheeks red from the cold. "Can we get donuts after?" "Donuts," Parker agreed with a tired smile. "You got it." He stood, brushing off his thrift store coat, and stepped through the wide doors of the ballroom. The winter gala was far fancier than he'd expected. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. A full orchestra played near the back. Waiters walked around with trays of champagne and tiny food Parker couldn't pronounce. It was all way out of his league. The only reason he was even there was because his sister, who worked the coat check, begged him to bring Kai and watch her kid for an hour while she worked a double shift. But 10 minutes into the gala, her babysitting client, a dancer scheduled to perform in the charity waltz, called to cancel last minute. The woman had sprained her ankle, and the partner she was assigned to now had no one. "I'm not dancing," Parker had told his sister flat out. "You know I haven't danced since." "Parker, please," she'd begged. "The woman's alone out there. The organizers will kill me if I don't find someone to fill in. You're tall, you've got rhythm, and you're here. You don't have to be Fred Astaire. Just try." He should have said no. Instead, 10 minutes later, he was standing in the wings of the ballroom floor, holding a stranger's hand. "I'm Olivia," she said, her voice low and calm, like she didn't have hundreds of eyes watching her. "You ready?" He blinked. Yes, Parker." Her hand was cool but steady in his. She looked elegant in a black satin dress, her dark hair pulled into a soft twist, eyes lined in a way that made them impossible to look away from. The waltz began. To his shock, his feet remembered. Maybe it was the muscle memory from the dance lessons he took years ago with his ex, or maybe it was Olivia's quiet confidence guiding him through. Either way, they moved in sync. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder, her gaze locked on his. "You're not half bad," she said after the first turn. "I haven't danced in years." "You're lying." He laughed. "I wish I were." As they danced, he caught a glimpse of Kai sitting on the edge of the crowd, munching on a cookie, completely mesmerized. Parker gave him a wink mid-spin. "You have a great smile," Olivia said suddenly, catching him off guard. "Oh, thanks, you too." "Is that your son?" He glanced back at Kai. "Yeah, his name's Kai, he's 6, and obsessed with dinosaurs." She smiled softly. "He's adorable." Something about the way she said it made him pause. There was a warmth in her tone, not pity, not judgment, just genuine interest. When the music faded, the crowd clapped, and Parker stepped back, releasing her hand. "Thanks for not letting me step on your toes," he said. "You didn't," she replied, tilting her head. "In fact, think I enjoyed that more than I was supposed to." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Should probably find my sister now, and get this one to bed." Olivia looked over at Kai again, and then back at Parker. "How about donuts first?" He blinked. "Wait, what?" She shrugged, smile playful. "Haven't had donuts in years. You said you were going, right? Unless you're worried I'll step on your toes again." He chuckled, surprised. "You want to come with us, like now?" "Why not?" she said, already walking toward Kai. "He looks like he could use a donut, and you look like you could use a break." Parker couldn't argue with that. They ended up in a tiny corner donut shop 5 blocks away, huddled in a booth while Kai devoured a frosted one with sprinkles. Olivia sipped hot chocolate, watching the little boy like he was the most fascinating thing in the world. "So," Parker asked, eyes on her over his coffee, "what do you do when you're not sweeping strangers into surprise waltzes?" She hesitated just for a second. "I I run a company, boring stuff. He nodded. You some kind of manager? Something like that, she said with a shrug. And you? I'm a mechanic, mostly freelance now. I used to be part of a shop, but after the divorce, I needed more flexibility for Kai. Her face softened. That's tough. Yes, but I wouldn't trade him for the world. I can tell, she said gently. He watched her, puzzled. She didn't act like someone who was just a manager. Her watch looked expensive. Her coat was wool, fitted perfectly. And when she talked, there was a certainty in her words that didn't come from guessing, it came from leading. But he didn't ask. He just wanted to enjoy the moment. When it was time to go, Olivia knelt down to Kai's level and helped him zip his coat. You're a pretty cool kid, she said. Maybe we'll hang out again sometime, yeah. Kai beamed. You're really pretty. Parker groaned. Kid, no filter. But Olivia just laughed, standing up. Thanks, Kai, you've got good taste. As they stepped outside, snow started to fall. Parker turned to her. Thanks for coming with us. I mean it. I had a great time, she said. Do you want my number? He asked, suddenly nervous. She looked at him, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Then she smiled. Only if you actually use it. He handed her a receipt with his name and number scribbled in pen, his hands slightly shaking. Good night, Parker, she said, stepping into her car, sleek, black, and definitely not something a middle manager drove. Night, Olivia. He watched the taillights disappear into the snowy street. He had no idea she was a CEO. And Olivia, she had no idea she was already falling for the poor, kind mechanic with the crooked smile and the dinosaur-loving kid. Olivia adjusted the gold bracelet on her wrist, the one her grandfather had given her the day she took over the company, and stared out the tinted window of the town car. The city's skyline blurred as they turned down a narrow street, but her mind was still lingering in a tiny donut shop, watching a little boy laugh over frosting, and a man with grease under his nails pour sugar into her hot chocolate like it was second nature. Ma'am, we're here, her driver announced as they pulled up to the glass tower with her name etched on the side, Dalton Technologies. She didn't move for a second. The night had left her unsettled, not in a bad way, just different. It had been a long time since someone had spoken to her without an agenda. Parker hadn't asked for anything. He hadn't even flinched when she offered to join him. He didn't know who she was. And for once, she didn't mind. Inside the building, her assistant was already waiting, tablet in hand. You have a video call with the Tokyo office in 15 minutes, then the advisory board meeting at noon, the assistant said, tapping on the screen. Also, your mother left another message about the charity auction. She wants to confirm your attendance. Cancel everything until 11, Olivia said, walking toward the private elevator. And tell my mother I'll be there, but I'm not donating another yacht. The assistant blinked. Of course. Inside her office, Olivia sat behind the massive oak desk and pulled up the local news. She didn't usually care for fluff pieces, but something caught her eye, a photo from the gala. She and Parker mid-waltz, his eyes fixed on hers, her hand resting lightly in his. The caption read, Mystery Pair Steals Spotlight in Charity Dance. She studied it for a long moment, then closed the page and opened a new one, a local search engine. She typed in Parker Mechanic Brooklyn. 5 results. She clicked the 4th. Dalton Auto Repair. The irony made her huff a quiet laugh. No relation, the shop had been around long before her company, but the coincidence was enough to make her pause. She leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. Interesting. Elsewhere, Parker was elbow-deep in the engine of a vintage Thunderbird, Kai seated nearby with a coloring book. The garage was quiet except for the occasional clank of metal and the hum of a space heater. The owner, Margot, leaned on the counter with her reading glasses perched at the tip of her nose. "So," she said, flipping a page in her magazine, "you dance now." Parker didn't look up. It was a one-time thing. "Sure it was, and I don't hoard cat videos." He grunted, wiping his hands on a rag. She just needed a partner. Uh-huh. And did this just a partner happen to be 5'10", legs for days, and walk like she owns half of Manhattan? He turned to look at her, oil streaked across his jaw. "You're weirdly specific." Margot shrugged. "I've met women like that. Usually they don't ask guys like us to get donuts." Parker frowned. "What does that mean?" "Nothing," she said innocently. "Just don't get used to it. Women like that don't usually come back around." I wasn't expecting her to. But even as he said it, he found himself glancing at the garage door every time the bell above it jingled. 3 days passed. Then one afternoon, as the last customer left and Parker was locking up, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. He froze, keys in hand. The door opened and Olivia stepped out, heels clicking against the pavement. Kai looked up from his drawing. "It's the pretty lady." Olivia smiled and walked over to him first. "Hey, dinosaur expert, working on your next masterpiece." "Uh-huh," he said, holding up a picture of a triceratops wearing sunglasses. "This one's named Trevor." "I love Trevor," she said seriously. Then she looked up at Parker. "Hi." He cleared his throat. "Hey, didn't expect to see you again." "I was in the neighborhood," she said, her tone casual but her eyes searching. "And I owed someone a donut." "There's a place a few blocks over," he said, gesturing toward the street. "Good," she said, "because I'm not leaving without one." As they walked, Kai between them, Olivia glanced sideways at him. "So, Dalton Auto Repair." He raised a brow. "Yes, why?" "No reason," she said too quickly. "You Googled me." "I might have." He chuckled. "And what did you find?" "Well, you have 5 stars. Impressive." "I pay people in free tire rotations." She laughed, the sound low and warm. "I doubt that." They stopped at the donut shop again, and this time Kai picked out 3 for them. One with caramel drizzle, another with marshmallows, and one covered in crushed cereal. As they sat in the corner booth again, Parker leaned forward. "All right, your turn." "For what?" "Truth, what do you actually do?" She paused, eyes flicking to Kai, then back to him. "Promise me you won't act different." "That depends. Are you secretly a pop star?" "Worse," she said. "I run Dalton Technologies." He blinked. "Wait, like, Dalton Technologies, the one with the self-driving car division?" She nodded. He leaned back. "Huh. That's all you're going to say?" "I mean, figured you were something big. You don't exactly scream barista." Olivia tilted her head. "You're not surprised." "I'm impressed," he said honestly, "but it doesn't really change anything." She studied him for a moment. "Most people would ask me for something." "I'm not most people." "No," she said softly, "you're not." Outside, the snow had started again, light but steady. Olivia glanced at her watch. "I have about 20 minutes before I turn into a pumpkin. Can I steal you for a walk?" Parker looked over at Kai. "As long as he's with us." "Of course." They walked through the snowy sidewalks, Kai skipping ahead, leaving tiny footprints behind. Olivia tucked her hands into her coat pockets. "I don't usually do this," she said after a while. "Do what?" "Tell people who I am, show up unannounced, take walks in the cold with mechanics and their kids." Parker shoved his hands into his jacket. "You always this charming." She smiled. "Only when I'm nervous." He glanced at her. "You nervous now?" "A little." Well, he said, you're doing fine. They walked in silence for a moment before Olivia stopped. I like this. What? Freezing your face off with strangers. She turned toward him. No, this, talking, laughing, not having to prove anything. You don't have to prove anything to me. I know, she said, that's why I came back. Parker looked at her, heart thudding a little harder than he expected. He didn't say anything. But he didn't need to. Because Olivia already knew what she'd just started was something she wasn't ready to walk away from. Not yet. Parker didn't realize how used to her he'd become until she stopped showing up. It had been 5 days. No texts, no drop-ins, no casual strolls to the donut shop with Kai skipping beside them. Just silence. And while he hadn't expected anything, Olivia had a life measured in board meetings and bottom lines, he hadn't expected the hollow feeling either. He stood under the hood of a vintage Mustang, but his thoughts weren't on the faulty alternator. They were on her laugh, the way she always tilted her head slightly before she said something bold, like she was testing if she could get away with it. Margot peeked her head into the garage from the office. You're gonna strip that bolt if you keep staring at it like it owes you an apology. I'm fine, Parker muttered. You're distracted. He didn't answer. I get it, she continued. You let someone in and now they're gone, but you're not the first guy to fall for someone out of his league. I didn't fall for anybody, he said too quickly. That's high. That night, after Kai fell asleep in the makeshift fort they'd built in the living room, Parker sat on the couch, flipping through the channels. He paused on a business segment, not really watching until a familiar name caught his eye. Dalton Technologies announces acquisition of a European robotics firm, expanding their AI infrastructure into aerospace territory. CEO Olivia Dalton remained unavailable for comment, reportedly attending closed-door negotiations overseas. He stared at the screen. Overseas. So she hadn't just disappeared. She had left. He turned off the TV and sat in the dark for a while, listening to Kai's soft breathing from the other room. The next afternoon, a knock on the garage door pulled him from under the hood of a car. He wiped his hands on a towel and opened it. A woman in her 50s stood there, wearing a tailored coat and a tightly pinned bun. Her expression was unreadable. Are you Parker's? Yeah. She stepped inside. I'm Vivian Dalton, Olivia's mother. He froze, towel still in hand. Okay, hi. She looked around the garage with polite disapproval before speaking again. I'm not here to cause a scene. I'm here because I think you deserve some clarity. About what? She left for Zurich 3 days ago, a last-minute acquisition. Major deal, very high profile. She didn't tell you, did she? No. Vivian nodded once. I thought not. He crossed his arms. Why come here to tell me? Because up until recently, I hadn't seen my daughter smile the way she did after she met you. And I've seen a lot of men try and fail to interest her for more than a dinner. Look, if she wants to be gone, that's fine. I didn't expect anything. She didn't leave because she wanted to, Vivian said, her tone sharper. She left because she didn't know how to stay. He blinked. What's that supposed to mean? She's used to people wanting her for her title, her money, her influence. Not for her, you're different. And frankly, that terrified her. Parker leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. She could have just said that. I told her exactly that. She's stubborn, got it from her father. He looked up. So why are you really here? Because I want her to stop hiding from the parts of life that actually matter. And because I think you might be the only person who could get through to her. I'm not some fairy tale fix, Mrs. Dalton. I've got rent due and a 6-year-old who thinks dinosaurs still roam the sewers. Vivian smiled faintly, and yet she kept your number. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small envelope. She wrote this before she left, didn't have the nerve to send it, do what you want with it. Then she turned and walked out the way she came. Parker stood there, the envelope in hand, grease stains on his sleeves, heart pounding like he'd just run a mile. He didn't open it until after dinner, when Kai was asleep and the world was quiet again. The handwriting was clean, slanted like her. Parker, I'm not good at explaining things when they matter. I used to think, had to be polished and prepared before I let someone in. You made me realize that maybe I was wrong. I've never met someone who made me feel more seen with fewer words, who didn't ask for anything, but still gave me more than I knew I needed. I left because I got scared. I didn't want you to see the parts of my life that feel like too much, but I miss the way you look at me like I'm just Olivia. If you're still willing, I'd like to see you again. No suits, no headlines, just us. Oh. He stared at the letter for a long time, then set it down on the table beside him. The next morning, he called Margot and asked if she could watch Kai for a few hours. Where are you going? She asked. To remind someone that running doesn't solve anything. He took the train uptown. It wasn't until he reached the Dalton building and saw the security guard give him a skeptical look that he realized how out of place he looked. Appointment, the guard asked. No, I'm here to see Olivia Dalton. The guard raised an eyebrow. You and every hedge fund exec in the city. I'm not a suit, Parker said calmly. I'm the mechanic she danced with at the gala, and I think she'd want to see me. The man hesitated, then picked up the phone. 10 minutes later, a woman in a slim navy dress walked out of the private elevator. Olivia's assistant, if he remembered correctly. She let him up without a word. When the elevator doors opened, he stepped into a space that looked more like a penthouse than an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a marble desk, and Olivia, standing beside it, staring at him like she couldn't believe he was real. I got your letter, he said. She took a step forward. You came. I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. But then I thought about Kai asking where you went, and I figured if he's not ready to give up on you, maybe shouldn't be either. Her voice wavered. I didn't know how to do this. I'm used to controlling everything, but with you. You don't have to control anything with me, he said. You just have to show up. She walked toward him slowly, heels quiet on the polished floor. I missed you, she whispered. He reached for her hand, then don't disappear again. And for the first time in days, the space between them felt like something they could cross. Together. Parker hadn't expected to walk into a gala again, but this time, he wasn't wearing borrowed shoes. The invitation had arrived 2 weeks after their reunion. Thick cardstock, gold lettering, and his name handwritten above Olivia's in the upper corner. It was the Dalton Foundation's spring benefit a black tie event held at a historic mansion overlooking the Hudson River. Olivia hadn't asked him to come. She'd asked him to come with her. Now, dressed in a tailored navy suit that Olivia had somehow arranged without ever taking his measurements, I guessed, she'd said, her eyes daring him to argue. Parker stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching Kai chase bubbles on the manicured lawn just beyond the terrace. A trusted friend of Margot's from the neighborhood had agreed to watch him after dinner. But until then, Kai was part of the evening. You clean up well, Olivia murmured, stepping beside him in a sleek midnight blue gown that shimmered faintly under the chandelier light. I still don't know how you got this suit to fit, he replied, not taking his eyes off her. I have a few talents you haven't seen yet. He turned toward her. How many people here actually know who you are? Most of them, but only a few know who I really am. You mean the version who eats cereal-covered donuts and builds pillow forts. She laughed. Exactly. The orchestra began a slow, elegant number, and couples started to gather on the floor. Olivia reached for his hand. Dance with me. He hesitated. There are people here wearing cufflinks that cost more than my car. And yet, she said, pulling him forward, you're the only one I want to hold onto right now. They moved to the center of the floor, the music swelling around them. This time, there were no nerves, no pretense, just rhythm and closeness. You know, he said, if you keep dragging me into ballrooms, I might start expecting this kind of treatment. I'm trying to set a dangerous precedent. He twirled her gently, then drew her close again. You're succeeding. As the song ended, a man in a gray tuxedo approached. He was tall, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes. Olivia's hand tightened slightly on Parker's. Olivia, the man said, I see you've brought company. Parker, this is Richard Langston, she said. He's on my board. Langston extended a hand. Pleasure. Parker shook it. Likewise. I've been hearing rumors, Langston said, eyes flicking between them, about changes in the company's direction, less focus on aggressive expansion, more investment in community-based tech. Olivia didn't flinch. That's correct. Langston raised an eyebrow. Any particular reason for the sudden pivot? Because I believe we've been chasing numbers instead of people, she said, and I'm done with that. Langston gave Parker a pointed look. See. Parker didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Olivia had already said enough. After Langston walked away, Olivia exhaled. He's going to cause trouble. Let him, Parker's voice was steady. You're not alone. She studied him. You really mean that? I wouldn't be here if I didn't. Later that evening, after Kai was tucked into bed upstairs, in one of the guest rooms, a room that Olivia had specifically outfitted with dinosaur sheets and glow in the dark stars, Parker found her out on the balcony, barefoot, her heels abandoned beside the stone railing. The city lights flickered in the distance. She didn't turn when she heard him. I used to come out here when I was a kid, she said quietly. My father hosted parties in this house. I'd sneak out and watch the stars. You ever wish you'd done something else with your life? All the time, she looked over. But then I met you, and Kai, and for the first time, I don't feel like I'm pretending. He stepped beside her. Then, maybe it's not about doing something else. Maybe it's about doing what you're already doing, but with the right people. She looked down at his hand, calloused and steady. You're not scared. Terrified, he admitted. You live in a world don't even understand. But I trust you. She blinked, and for a moment, her confidence cracked. I don't know what this looks like in a year or 5. He turned to face her fully. Then let's figure out what it looks like tomorrow, and the day after that. A long silence stretched between them before she said, I want you with me, in every room, every decision, every part of this life. Then say it, he replied. I love you. The words landed like lightning sharp, impossible to ignore. I love you too, he said, and not just when you're in a dress that costs more than my rent. I loved you when you helped Kai zip his jacket, when you ate a donut and got frosting on your cheek. I loved you when you were just Olivia. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't look away. He pulled something from his pocket, a small, square box. I'm not rich, he said. This ring isn't platinum, but it's real, and it's yours if you want it. She opened the box slowly. The ring was simple, a single sapphire set in a silver band. It was my mother's, he said. She wore it every day for 30 years. Olivia looked up at him, eyes glassy. Ask me. He dropped to one knee, the city glowing behind him. Olivia Dalton, will you marry me? Her answer didn't come in words, it came in the way she flung her arms around him and whispered yes against his neck. The wedding was small, by Dalton standards. Just close friends, family, and a 6-year-old in a bow tie who insisted on carrying the rings in a dinosaur figurine's mouth. After the ceremony, Parker lifted Olivia onto the dance floor, spinning her beneath strings of golden lights. "You know," she said, resting her head on his shoulder, "this all started because I lost a dance partner." He held her tighter, and I found everything I didn't know I was missing. They danced long after the music faded, the two of them moving slowly, quietly, against the backdrop of a world that had finally grown small enough to hold in each other's arms. 3 months had passed since Olivia and Parker exchanged vows beneath the canopy of twinkling lights and whispered, "I love yous," that had rewritten the course of both their lives. Now, the early morning sun spilled through the kitchen windows of their restored brownstone. Olivia's surprise wedding gift to Parker, who had once told her he'd always dreamed of working on cars in his own garage, not one rented by the hour. She'd bought the building outright, renovated the street-level space into a sleek, fully outfitted workshop, and had the upper floors transformed into a home that blended industrial charm with warmth, lived in comfort. Parker stood barefoot by the stove, flipping pancakes while Kai sat at the counter, legs swinging as he arranged a lineup of toy dinosaurs. Olivia walked in wearing one of Parker's old t-shirts, her hair still damp from the shower, and pressed a kiss to Kai's forehead before wrapping her arms around Parker's waist from behind. "You make those for me, or the little raptor over there," she said against his shoulder. Parker slid a pancake onto a plate. He earned them, cleaned up his entire Lego city without being asked. Kai beamed, "I even vacuumed." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "I might need to start offering pancakes as a performance incentive at work." Parker handed her a plate. "You'd bankrupt yourself in syrup." After breakfast, Olivia headed upstairs for a video call in her new home office, smaller, less intimidating than the Dalton Tower boardroom, with a view of the neighborhood trees and a desk just big enough for her laptop and a photo of her, Parker, and Kai at the wedding. She'd stepped back from daily operations, choosing instead to focus on community initiatives and innovation grants. It had been her decision, one that surprised her board, but delighted her mother, who had since retired and taken a. Parker, meanwhile, had turned the garage into a thriving boutique auto shop, specializing in vintage restorations. Word had spread fast. People liked the idea of a mechanic who didn't upsell and actually explained things without condescension. He'd hired 2 apprentices, both from local trade schools, and had started mentoring kids on weekends, something he'd once wished someone had done for him. That afternoon, Olivia returned from her meeting and found Parker sitting on the back steps of the garden, a blueprint rolled out beside him. Kai was kneeling nearby, stacking rocks around the base of a tiny planted tree. "What's this?" she asked, crouching beside them. Parker tapped the drawing. "We're building a treehouse." Kai nodded excitedly, "with a pulley system for snacks." Olivia laughed, "Naturally." "We figured it could double as a reading nook," Parker said. "And later, if he grows out of it, we could turn it into a greenhouse or something." She looked between them, heart catching in her chest. "You two never stop building things." Parker met her gaze. "That's the plan." Later, after Kai had gone to a sleepover at his friend's house, Margot, having volunteered to drop him off and stay with the other parent, until Olivia and Parker could confirm everything was settled, Olivia and Parker sat on the rooftop under a canvas of stars, a bottle of wine between them and a warm breeze brushing past. "I keep thinking about how different everything feels," Olivia said, her legs stretched over his lap. "And not in the heart racing, everything's on fire kind of way. Just calm." Parker traced slow circles on her knee. "You're allowed calm, you earned it." "I used to think love had to be dramatic, tangled, loud, but this is the kind of quiet I never thought I'd crave." He leaned in, brushing his lips against hers. You know what, crave? Besides donuts. Always donuts, but mostly mornings where I wake up and you're there. Afternoons where I hear you arguing with Kai about which dinosaur would win in a fight. Nights like this. She smiled. You're getting sentimental, Mr. Dalton. He raised an eyebrow, still getting used to that name. Well, you married into it, she teased. No take-backs. I wouldn't dream of it. They sat in silence for a while, the city breathing softly below them. I've been thinking, Olivia said eventually, about starting something new, not work-related. Parker glanced at her. What kind of something? A foundation for single parents. Scholarships, resources, childcare help. Inspired by a boy who loves dinosaurs and a man who never let go of the wheel even when life took a detour. His throat tightened. You serious? She nodded, dead serious. He pulled her closer. You're going to change lives. I'm changing mine first. Weeks passed, then months. The treehouse was built complete with a pulley system and a solar-powered reading light. Parker's business expanded, and Olivia's foundation gained traction. They traveled together, just the three of them, sometimes for work, sometimes for wonder. Kai collected postcards from every city, Parker collected stories from every mechanic he met, and Olivia collected a sense of peace she'd never known she needed. On the anniversary of their first dance, Olivia surprised Parker by renting out the same ballroom from the gala. But this time, there were no tuxedos, no reporters, no curious stares, just soft music, candlelight, and the two of them in bare feet. I never thought I'd end up here, she whispered, her head resting against his chest. I didn't either, he said, but I wouldn't change a second. They danced in silence, the way they had that very first night when she was just Olivia, and he was just Parker, and the world hadn't yet caught up to them. And when the music faded, they didn't stop. They kept moving. Together. Forever.